What's a good word, everyone? It's your boy DKB here. I just want to say thanks for all the support. The channel's been steadily growing, and the number you see below, you can drop a text, shoot a voicemail, any ideas, topics, collabs, etc. you guys want to see. I'll include them in future videos and live streams, and I'll catch you again. Be easy. What's a good word, Jets fans? It's your boy DKB here. We have a lot of news to unpack today, and I want to start off on the general manager front, where we got breaking news about an hour or two ago. The Titans plan to hire Mike Borgonzi. Now, we know we got an early jump on this whole process. We've already talked about the number of candidates. It's been a slow process, right? And I don't know what necessarily is taking so long to narrow down the traits or the experience or whatever prerequisites that we're looking for. But, you know, the early bird gets the worm. That's kind of simply what the issue here is. The Titans, even the Raiders, they don't have as comprehensive as a list as we have. And so you can blame this, I feel like, a bit on the media spiraling this offseason on the New York Jets, where we are so locked in and making sure that we find the right person that we're willing to lose potentially one of the top guys if they're not our top guy, if that makes sense. And so if they felt like this is one of the only pain points I have. Mike Borgonzi had a second interview with the Titans maybe earlier this week or some point last week. The New York Jets still haven't initiated their final interviews yet for GM candidates or head coach candidates, which that piece makes sense. So just the fact that we potentially lost out on Mike Borgonzi and the fact that if we really think he was as qualified as he is, we know that he was going to make it, right? So why not at least lock in that interview right away and then continue to proceed if it's a slower process with the rest of the candidates? It doesn't make a ton of sense. Also, there was a weird bit of news I saw on the Borgonzi front that made me think that maybe we still have a chance, although I think it's unlikely, where they haven't offered Borgonzi an actual contract yet. It's just out there that they are going to offer him the position. So I don't imagine that blowing up into any kind of issue. There's also this other weird element that I've seen some commentary about, where the Titans GM job isn't going to be your traditional general manager job either. And I don't know what all the details around that are. I don't know if there's going to be certain responsibilities that he'll be stripped of or doesn't necessarily need to worry about, or what that looks like. But kudos to the Titans. They found their guy pretty quickly. They locked him in. Not only that, it's exciting for Borgonzi that he's getting to work with a top draft pick and potentially his quarterback of the future, right? Not having to rely on Will Levis and stuff like that. So huge for him. You also have this other piece where the Brian Gutekunst, Packers GM, he made some comments today essentially bidding farewell to John Eric Sullivan, and we know that we brought him in. He's another largely qualified candidate for the New York Jets, and it's intriguing for him, right? Because he brings a lot of the, I want to say, like, insulated kind of expectations that I like to see, where we're really focusing in on draft classes, we're focusing in on development of our players, we're focusing on recruiting our guys, right? We want second and third contracts for guys that we drafted and developed, and you're not necessarily looking outwardly and having to rely on huge free agent classes. So one of the big things that I've always respected about the Packers organization is that they may walk away during the offseason with 3 or 4 free agents just to help supplement areas, but they're never really looking for the large splashes, and that's because they're hitting in the draft. So John Eric Sullivan's a name I do expect to be on the secondary cycle. He's probably the more intriguing candidate from the standpoint of who do you pair with him as a head coach, right? I'm not sure he has any direct ties to anybody that we overly love as a fan base, right, off the top of my head. But with that said, still doesn't mean that he can't find a qualified candidate to pair with himself that aligns with his vision and everything that he wants to do. So keep in mind, on that front, John Eric Sullivan could potentially be a front runner if Gutekunst kind of knows maybe some behind the scenes details, because he's only John Sullivan. He's only interviewed with us and the Raiders, and he hasn't completed his interview with the Raiders yet. To my knowledge, it's not even scheduled. On some head coach front news, to wrap things up here, Josh McCown, there's a report out there that he's not willing to leave Minnesota in order to become an offensive coordinator elsewhere. He may be one of those rare people that makes, just that entirely skips over coordinator, goes straight to head coach. But Adam Schefter kind of commented on this. This is coming from his sphere of things and what he's, around. It would be a huge blow to Brian Flores. Let's start there, right? Brian Flores's credentials in and of itself are up there with some of the other best head coach candidates. But what really sets him over the edge, I think, in many people's eyes, is that he would have brought Josh McCown over with him. If you're losing him, and you also pay attention to the other rumors I talked about where maybe he's not as in love with bringing over Grigson. He's not as in love with potentially bringing over Grigson with him as well. That means he's standing out there on an island. If he's on an island, I think you start to lose a lot of that edge that people will want. Now, he still brings a lot of stuff. There's going to be a no-nonsense attitude. There's going to be a ton of accountability. The defense should be relatively elite, although as many people have mentioned down the stretch here for the Vikings, his defense has been woefully underperforming, which to a certain degree, and I'm not trying to make excuses for him, it's predicated on linebacker play, and he's kind of has some injuries and stuff like that. So outside of that, Brian Flores may be a name that we start to see kind of dwindle out here in the wind and maybe get pushed down the list in terms of guys that the New York Jets would be highly interested based on this news. And then to end things, wanted to finish it off on a high note. Jermaine Johnson did repost something on Twitter or X from somebody else that was basically mentioned, if you want Aaron Glenn, repost this. He did. So now you're talking about two well-respected elite members of the New York Jets defense in Quentin Williams and Jermaine Johnson, both on the front seven, which isn't an area of specialty for Aaron Glenn, both jumping at the opportunity for him to become the next head coach. So I don't know what more you could possibly look for, what more you could possibly want. Aaron Glenn spoken to the so-called lack of expertise and experience on the offensive side of the ball. He obviously has performed well, and even in some of the more critical times, take the Vikings game, for example, when necessary, considering all the injuries and things. And again, his background really speaks for itself. I love all of the different areas he's been able to cement himself in and at least have a natural working understanding of those. So I'm really hyped for this. Let me know what you guys think about the news, though, and I'll catch you guys again. Peace.